Welcome back, everyone. Great to be with you. Excited for our study today. Today is the 21st day of the Omer, which is the energy of Malchut, of Tiferet. Tiferet is the week of restriction. Tiferet is the week of balance. Really, we are meant to master the level of Tiferet because it represents the perfect balance that we're all looking for in life. That balance between yes and no, that balance between holding on and letting go, pushing and knowing when to let go. So this is giving and receiving. This is really what the spiritual work comes down to. Jacob represents the energy of Tiferet, so which he represents the perfection of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So today is the manifestation of that perfection. And as we're studying the Zohar, we know that we're plugging into the tree of life consciousness. We want to draw all this assistance, our thoughts, full of ups and downs, full of selfishness, full of insecurity, full of smallness. And we want that our consciousness will be purified with the light of the Zohar to hear the voice of our soul and to overcome our selfish nature within. Today's study is dedicated to the elevation of the soul of of Tuvia ben Michael. It's one of our dear community members, one of the pillars of the London community who passed away a few years ago, Trevor Green. Today is his anniversary. Without Trevor Green, without this beautiful soul, the Kabbalah Center in London would not exist the way it does. And his soul deserves great merit because of all the good that he's done and continues to do for our center, but for the whole country. So we want to dedicate the light of today's study to continue to support his soul, and his soul will continue to support our beautiful community. So let's begin with the prayer of the Ari to open up our hearts to support our study with deep appreciation for the merit that we have to have access to this great light, meditating that this helps us draw great support and aligning our consciousness with the power of restriction. ריבון העולמים ואדוני אדונים אב הרחמים והסליחון מילים אנחנו לפניך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו בגידה ושליח חוויה שקרבתנו לתורתך ולעבודתך ועבודת הקודש ונתת לנו חלק בסודות תורתך הקדושה ואנו מחיינו שעשית עמנו חסד גדול כזה על כן אנחנו מפילים תחנוננו לפניך שתמחו ותסלח לכל חטאותינו ועוונותינו ואל יהיו עוונותינו מבדילים בינינו לפניך וכן יעזור לפניך אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו שתכונן את לבבינו ליראתך ולאהבתך ותקשיב אוזניך לעיון אלה ותפתח לבבינו הערה בסודות תורתך ויהיה למדנו זה נחת רוח לפני כיסך ואותך לקח מכוח ותציל עלינו עומק כל נשמתנו וכל בחינתנו ושיתנוצצונו את תוצאות עבדיך הקדושים שהידם גלית את דבריך לעולם וזכותם וזכות אבותם וזכות אותם ותמיתם ותחשנם יעמוד לנו לקשר בדברים אלו ובזכותם תערננו במה שאנו לומדים כמאמן אם זה מהירות ישראל גל עיניו והביט נפלא מתורתך כי אדוני ייתן חוכמה מפי דעת ותבונה יהיו לרצונים מפי הגן לפניך אדוני וגואלי. We're also meditating as we're in the portion of Achrimot and Kedoshim. As always, we meditate that this study, this connection, help awaken more love within each and every one of us and more love in the world. That's really what it's all about. So we're continuing on paragraph 22. And the Zohar is now describing the dreams of Pharaoh. The portion begins by, after 2 years, the additional 2 years that Joseph spent in prison, the Midrash says that on the day of Rosh Hashanah, on the night of Rosh Hashanah, Pharaoh has 2 dreams. His first dream, we discussed a bit yesterday. He dreamt that there were, let's just put that image up if I can find it. He dreamt that he was standing by the Nile River and he saw 7 healthy cows come out of the Nile and then 7 sick, skinny cows come out of the Nile. The 7 skinny cows consume the 7 healthy cows and their form doesn't change. He wakes up and then he has a second dream. And the second dream, as we see here, Sheva Shibolim. He sees in the second dream, he sees 7 stalks of grain or 7 ears of grain. Here it says corn. I don't think there was, I don't know if it was corn. And he sees seven healthy ones that come out from one. And then he sees seven, uh, withered, sickly, I don't know, corn, grains then go and consume um, uh, the healthy ones. Okay, and so he sees these two dreams: the cows and the grains. And also, actually, I don't know if this one is by the Nile. I don't know. I don't remember. But either way, Rabbi Yehuda says, and now he wakes up, as we know, and he doesn't know the interpretation to the dreams. The Midrash actually says that when he was dreaming, he dreamt what he saw, but also he dreamt the interpretation. He knew what it meant while he was dreaming, but when he woke up, he remembered the dreams, but he could not remember what they meant. Now, the reason why he dreamt these on Rosh Hashanah, we know that on Rosh Hashanah, that is when the everything is determined for the year, especially the finances for the year. And he was being shown what this year would look like financially, because he was going to see that there's going to be 7 years of plenty and then 7 years um, of famine, right? And that's why the seven healthy cows are consumed by the seven sick cows. Seven healthy grains are then consumed by the seven unhealthy grains, right? So it's like the 7 years of blessings, of plenty that are then consumed by the 7 years of famine. And Joseph, that's how Joseph interprets the dream. But here, the Zohar's explained before, what are the seven cows? They represent the seven healthy are the seven positive, seven sick are the seven connections to negativity. So now what are the grains? Rabbi Yehuda says, Ile kadma'e inun tavin, the earlier grains that he saw, which are the seven healthy ones, the seven good ones. Inun tavin, they are good. Begin the inun misita demina, because they come from the right side, meaning the side of sharing, the side of mercy. Dichtiv be kitov, because it says in the phrase of the first day of creation, it says that God, vayar Elohim et ha'or kitov, God saw the light and it was good. Meaning, because what was the first day of creation? It's the day of chesed, the day of mercy, the day of goodness. The essence of goodness is tov, the essence of goodness, tov, is chesed, mercy, kindness, love. That's the first day of creation, and that's the aspect of goodness. But then, v'ilin bishin inun latata minayu. Then the seven bad grains, they are beneath the seven good grains. Sheva shibalim inun misita dedachu. There are seven grains from the side of purity, v'ilin misita demisavu, and seven grains from the side of impurity. So, side from mercy and from chesed, and that's the good grains, and the bad grains are from beneath that, right? Connecting to impurity, to negativity. V'chulu dagin kaimin ilin alilin, and the levels exist one upon the other. V'ilin lekavel ilin, and all against each other, right? Corresponding to each other. V'chulu kachama paro b'chelmi. And Pharaoh saw all of this in his dream. Now here, the Zohar will clarify this more in the next paragraph as well. But it's not that he was seeing, because we're saying he's seeing good and bad. He wasn't being shown the essence of, like we said before about the cows yesterday. He wasn't. It says it's the seven levels of the Nukva, the seven levels of Malchut. He wasn't seeing the essence of these elements. He was seeing like if Pharaoh is seeing into the spiritual realms, he's not seeing the essence of the spiritual realms. He's being shown the manifestation of that essence. It'll become more clear in the next paragraph. Paragraph 23. Rabbi Yesa says, is it possible that someone like Pharaoh, a negative person like Pharaoh, a selfish person, right? Pharaoh was, for example, we know the Pharaoh in the time of the Israelites, he made everyone think, maybe he himself believed, that he was God, that he was a God. right? He had people worship him. They built the statues and whatever. Someone who claims that they are God, someone who has such ego, can they be? Can they have such a level of prophecy? Can they have such a level to see into the spiritual realms, to see what's going to happen this coming year, to be shown all these powerful high levels of purity and impurity and light and darkness? How could Pharaoh, who's such a negative person, see all of this? How was he given such a gift of prophecy? And also to see what's coming in the next 14 years. Amalei Yehuda says, he answers Rabbi Yesa, Kegavna dilahon chama, de chama dagin al dagin. He didn't see the essence of what he was shown. He was just seeing a image or a he saw what's similar to the essence. He didn't see the essence, he saw what was removed and what hinted to the essence, let's say. There are many, many levels, one upon the other, each corresponding to the other, and more upon the other, and they all stand one over the other. And he saw the lowest of those levels, right? So he saw let's say, like almost like the branch of 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 the tree. He didn't see the tree itself. He didn't see the essence itself. He saw all the different manifestations or the lower levels that hint to or that derive from the source. Paragraph 24. V'hataninan, we've learned. Depending on a person's level, it's to the degree of his spiritual level and his consciousness of what he is shown in his dream. Right? So let's say a person with higher spiritual consciousness will be shown greater, will be revealed greater things in the dreams. Like we read about the different Kabbalists, like the Ari and different Kabbalists through the generations, that in their dreams they would enter, spiritual realms and see different tzaddikim and different righteous souls, and they would enter different chambers in the spiritual realms. They would study, download wisdom and messages. Right? Actually, the most important time of the day for a tzaddik is actually when they sleep. All the good that they do and all the wisdom they acquire and connection they make during the day pales in comparison to what their soul can do while they're sleeping. Because when you're sleeping, and this can be true for all of us, when we're sleeping, our soul is no longer bound by this physical world. Our soul is not bound by our rational mind. That's why in a dream you could dream of anything. That's why in a dream you can be anywhere. That's why a dream might feel like it was happening all night, but really it's just a few seconds. Because it's downloads. It's in an instant. It's beyond time, space, and motion. So tzaddikim, when the soul leaves their body, they actually receive and they connect to much greater wisdom, much greater light. But a person on a lower level, like Pharaoh, he'll be shown on his level. And that's what he saw. And the soul, when it ascends to go and see everything, perceive everything, every soul sees according to its level. No one will see on a level greater than where their consciousness is. And therefore, and therefore Pharaoh saw according to his level and not more. Paragraph 25. The Zohar is again going to the beginning of the portion, saying that it came to pass at the end of 2 years. What happened at the end of 2 years? The end of, as we said, the end of 2 years represents the end of darkness. Rabbi Chizkiah quotes the verse in Ecclesiastes that says, "L'chol zman ve'et l'chol chefetz tachat hashamayim." As King Solomon said, there is a season set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, right? So that's where the famous teaching of King Solomon, there's a time for life, there's a time for death, there's a time for cold, there's a time for hot, right? There's a time for growth, there's a time for, he explains all the different times, a time to plant, a time to harvest, I think there are 14 different times that he mentions. So what is this time? Was the end of these 2 years? What does this end of 2 years represent? What does this time represent? So Rabbi Yechizkel is revealing, Tachazeh, come and see. Everything the Creator does down here below in our world. Everything has its allotted time. Everything good has a lot of time in this world. Everything bad has a lot of time, right? What's the famous parable, right? This too will end, right? Or this too will pass, right? Meaning the good, the greatest highs of your life are not going to last forever because you got to hit reality. And the greatest lows of your life also are not going to last because that's not what life is all about. It's not just full darkness. There's a period of time for everything. The Creator set time for light, and the Creator set time for darkness. And the Creator also set time for all the different nations of the world. Every nation has its time, but also specifically, every nation has its time to control, as Rav Ashlag says, to control Israel. We're not just talking about the country or the people. We're talking about the consciousness, where there's time where Israel represents the consciousness of sharing, true sharing. And when that consciousness is not upheld, then other nations are going to control. There's a time where light prevails and a time where darkness prevails. Our job as spiritual people is to bring the time where light prevails. When we overcome our own internal darkness, then we will overcome all darkness that exists in this world. Right? The Zohar makes it sound like, oh, the Creator controls everything. And it's true, but we control our world. The world is given to us. The darkness in this world only exists because of us, not because of the Creator. So the allotted darkness, a lot of time for darkness, is dependent on us. Oh wait, where am I? Yeah, and there are times allotted for darkness. The EU Galutit Israel, this represents the exile of Israel. Again, we determine what that darkness is. That's why it says that the end of negativity and darkness can come, right? The redemption can come be'ita, in its time, using that same word et. Et is time. It can be in its allotted time that the Creator set up. 6,000 years of tikkun. If you read through the Kabbalistic writings about how the end of pain, suffering, and death comes, it happens with a lot of destruction. And that's why the Kabbalists want to opt for the other option, which is achishena, which means we hasten it, we bring it quicker. That's why it says when the Zohar is revealed in the world, Yifgun be'min galute berachame. The world will come to redemption with mercy, not with judgment. Time also means judgment. We can skip time, right? That's Passover, right? You skip the process. You skip the darkness that is typical, right? Most people only transform through pain. Most people only transform through darkness. The spiritual work is where you can skip the darkness and get to the transformation, get to the good part. We can skip the darkness. We can skip the exile. We can skip the destruction that most people or humanity typically needs to change. When does a country, I always think about like after 9/11 in the States, the country was never more united than after 9/11. But also that, right? United we stand, but it took just a little while until, I mean, New Yorkers to be nice to each other, that's not very common. During that, right, the first few months, everyone was really kind, everyone loved each other, right? Or when there's a hurricane, God forbid, or whenever there's a disaster, everyone comes together. But then we go back to our ego and separation. And the point is to realize, right, when we have a common enemy, also is true in sports, right? During the Olympics or whatever, everyone loves their national team, but normally all the teams have rivalries. Because when you have a common enemy, then you realize that your friend that's on your team is not your enemy. That's why every alien invasion in a movie, right? All of the world comes together to overcome the aliens, but normally those countries are at war. When we realize we have a common enemy, we already have a common enemy. All of humanity has a common enemy. It's our inner opponent. It's the darkness that exists in the world. The other country, the other person is not the enemy. As long as we think they are, then the darkness will be in control. When we blame each other, when we think the other is the darkness, when we think the other is my enemy, that gives strength to the true enemy, which is our inner opponent, which is Satan. And there's a time allotted to darkness, which represents the exile of Israel. Under the control of other nations. The Creator set a time for everything, for everyone. Begin kach, therefore, and that's why it says there is a season set for everything, a time for every experience. What does it mean? Oops, where am I going? What does it mean that there is a season for every there's to everything there's a season, to every time there's a purpose or experience. Zimna ve'idan hu lechola, there's a time and a moment for everything. Lechola hu reuta diishtakach letata. For everything, all desires and everything all goodness that exists down below, there is a time, which means, Rav Ashlag here explains, all good that exists in this world, there is a time for it, which also one of my favorite sayings is at the end, it's always good. And if it's not good, it's not yet the end, which means there is always a time for goodness. There's always the light of the Creator will always come. The light will always come. The sun will always rise. I have to know that there is a time for that. And the truth is, I can delay sunrise. I can delay the good with my consciousness, with my uncertainty, and I can hasten the good. I can hasten the sunrise with my certainty. But there is a time for everything. Paragraph 26. Another explanation. When it says in the verse, there is a time for everything, the Zohar is pointing out the word ve'et, time. My et, what is time? What is et? It refers to, it's similar in the verse that says, et lasod Hashem, it is a time to act for God. They have abandoned, they have violated, they have let go of your Torah, their teachings. And this is a verse that is often used by the sages, by the Kabbalists, to like Rabbi Shimon in the Zohar. He says, it's time to reveal the secrets, right? It's time to act for God, which means it's time to reveal the light in the world. Rav Ashlag, when he wrote his book, Wisdom of Truth, right? Matan Torah, the gift of the Bible, he also, it's time, the old ways are not going to work anymore. It's time to reveal the light in a new way. It's time to act. It's time to change. Uchtiv, it also says actually in this week's portion in Achremot, it says that the Creator told Moses to tell Aaron that do not come at any time into the Kodesh, the shrine, the sanctuary, the Holy of Holies, or the Mishkan, the tabernacle. Don't come at any time. There are specific times that you should come. Right? This is because after Aaron's two sons died and everything that happened, but it has to be everything in its time. The level of time, this moment, represents the level, the appointed level of control, which represents the control of this world, which is called the Malchut, the Nukva, the female aspect of the vessel. We explained, I think it was yesterday, that there was a process of light coming into this world. The source of light into our world comes through the Nukva, which is like the female aspect of light that shines into this world. That's called the Nukva. The Nukva represents the it's like the source of light in our world, but in the spiritual realms is like the lowest level. It's like the vessel of all the endless light in the spiritual realm, and then from that vessel it shines down into our world. And therefore, therefore, this time, which is the Nukva, is in control. It dominates. Everything that happens below, under the heaven, right? So it's the Nukva, it's the Malchut that controls everything in our world, everything that is under the heavens, meaning our reality. In the verse when it says at the end of 2 years, it was at the end of 2 years. What does the end of 2 years represent? It's the end of the time of darkness. It's the end of, right? Literally, it's 12 years of Joseph in prison, but it also represents the time of negativity, the time of darkness, time of concealment, where the truth, the reality was going to be revealed. That Pharaoh, at the end of these 2 years, he was given a vision of the end of darkness, the coming of light. And therefore, that's how he knew everything. That's how everything was revealed to him. That's how everything was revealed through the dream of what was going to happen. It was the end of darkness, which means the end of concealment, the end of the end of the left column, which represents a flow of light. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 2. Now we're going to go into chapter 3. Chapter 3, it says that as Pharaoh woke up, his spirit was troubled because he couldn't remember his dreams. Paragraph 27. Vahiba boker. Oh, I mixed this up. Either way. Vahiba boker v'tipaem rucho v'yishlach v'yikrat kochah to mitzrayim v'kochah hameh v'gomer. So it says that he woke up in the morning. What did I do here? Oh. It says he woke up in the morning and his spirit was troubled. The Zohar will explain this phrase a little bit more. And he called upon all of the magicians and seers and sages within Egypt, and he told them the dream, and no one could interpret the dream. Now, the sages explain, the Kabbalists explain, that this was on purpose, because this was how the Creator was going to, this was the plan that the Creator had to take Joseph out of prison and to make him king. Because, remember, there was a man who was supposed to remember him, was supposed to remember Joseph. The wine steward who Joseph interpreted his dream, for 2 years he tried to remember Joseph every day. Every day he forgot him. Every day he didn't remember him. Every day he forgot him, as we said yesterday. Now came the time where Pharaoh had a dream, and now he needs to remind Pharaoh, he needs to tell Pharaoh about Joseph. But the Creator waited until all the wise people, all the magicians, all the astrologers, all of the fortune tellers and psychics all came to Pharaoh, and they tried to interpret his dream. And every dream interpretation, Pharaoh didn't remember what an interpretation was, but every time they told him, he said, no, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. So it says the Creator set it up that every single possible interpretation would be given, and then Joseph would come. So no one would claim, oh, yeah, that's I would have said the same thing, right? No, everyone got it out of the way. The Creator went through all the contestants. The Creator went through everyone. Give your interpretation. And then Pharaoh will be left with the only true interpretation, which would be Joseph. And that's why Pharaoh eventually, made him, gave him this position. So the Zohar is now focusing on what is v'tipa'em rucho. What does it mean his spirit was troubled? V'tipa'em rucho, my v'tipa'em. Why this phrase specifically v'tipa'em? That he was troubled or he was anxious. Rabbi Yosef reveals, he says, how kumua, we've learned, befarokti vatipa'em. When it comes to Pharaoh and his dream, it uses the word vatipa'em, which means troubled. But then uven Nebuchadnezzar, when it came to Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian king in the time of Daniel, the prophet, ktiv vatitpa'em. In his dream, it says that he had a dream, he had dreams, and his spirit was agitated, troubled. He was anxious, but it uses the word vatit pa'em. It uses a double letter taf. He also didn't know what his dream meant. We've learned to have vatit pa'em. It writes it with one letter taf, that Pharaoh, he was troubled, but it uses the word one letter taf. Begin to hava yada chelma. When it came to Pharaoh, Pharaoh remembered his dream, but he couldn't remember the interpretation. When it came to Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian king, Chama Chelma, V'chama Pishra, V'itneshei Kolamine. Pharaoh was shown the dream, Nebuchadnezzar was shown the dream, and he was shown the interpretation. But when he woke up, he couldn't remember neither the dream nor the interpretation. So that's why it has the double letter taf in Nebuchadnezzar, but just one taf, just one level of trouble, of forgetfulness that came to Pharaoh. He knew the dream, but he didn't remember the interpretation. That's how he could tell. That's how Pharaoh knew when the interpretation was true or not, because he knew he was told the interpretation, but he couldn't remember it. That's also why Nebuchadnezzar, when Daniel came and interpreted his dream, Daniel had to tell him the dream as well. Paragraph 28. Come and see. When he was troubled, his spirit was troubled. It says lefa'amo. It means, as it says for Samson, when Samson was growing up, Vatachel ruach Hashem lefa'amo, that the Creator, the spirit of the Creator moved him, but it was like a temporary. It was coming and going, as we see. That when Samson was growing, the spirit of the Creator came upon him, but it was temporary, as the Zohar reveals. The spirit would come and it would go. It would come and go. Samson wasn't at a place that the spirit resided within him completely, wholly, and permanently. It was like a spirit that would come and go. It wasn't. It was temporary. That's why it says that the spirit of the Creator moved him. Again, it was a temporary coming and going of that spirit. Dichdein hava sheruta, that the spirit would reside. In the beginning, the spirit would reside. Of hacharuche ita. The spirit would come and go. Similarly here, the spirit would reside. Meaning the spirit, their interpretation, would reside within Pharaoh, and it would come and go. Once again, he would come and he would wake up and he would go. It would be revealed to him while he was sleeping, and then it would go. When it says for Nebuchadnezzar, sorry, my slides are a mess. So when it says with Nebuchadnezzar, it says that his spirit was troubled, agitated, but with a double taf, meaning twice as agitated, twice as troubled, because he didn't remember the dream or the interpretation. That the awakening that he had was doubled, and the trouble that was awakened was doubled because he didn't remember the dream or the interpretation. Ve'azlin ve'taivin, the spirit would come and it would go, come and go. Vedahu. And this is, as it says in the verse, kefam befam. It says that with the prophet Samuel, that vayavo Hashem vayit yatsa vayikra kefam befam, that when the Creator came and revealed himself to Samuel, Samuel was one of the greatest prophets on some degree. He was even higher than Moses and Aaron. He was higher than Moses and Aaron combined. Very, very powerful prophet. So when the Creator came and called him, Shemuel, Shemuel, Samuel, Samuel, Vayamel Shema daber ki shomeh avdecha. This is the first time that Samuel revealed his prophecy. God calls his name twice. Whenever someone is called twice, it represents the level of their current level and their perfected level. So this represents how now the spirit of the Creator rested on Samuel permanently. This is when now Samuel was elevated to the level of prophecy. Befam behai, ufam behai. That it was this time and that time. So when it came to Pharaoh, his mind wasn't settled. It would come and go. I think we have to stop here, but we'll continue tomorrow to finish this chapter, and then we'll go into chapter 4, where they take Joseph, they quickly take him out of the pit, which represents the coming out of darkness. And we all want to connect to that as well. So that's it for today, guys. And the truth is, when we talked about receiving messages in our dreams, it all is revealed to us on our own level. The Rav Berg explains that depending on your actions during the day, that will determine the messages and dreams that you can receive at night. So this is really, or right before you go to sleep. That's why the Kabbalists do meditations, because you're supposed to download all the light and wisdom you need for your day. You're supposed to prepare your soul to elevate into the Creator's realm, into the spiritual realm, And so your actions during the day, your consciousness will determine what kind of connection your soul makes in the endless world. So, a very simple and practical message from our Zohar today. Thank you guys for joining. Lots of love. Have an amazing day.